Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Healing is War. On this podcast, we explore the dark side, the shadows of starting or continuing your spiritual and healing journey. My name is Elmira. I am your host. We actually have a special guest today, Miss Tamasha Evans. She is known across the world. And when I say across the world, she's all the way in Indonesia. So literally mean that. She's known across the world as a plant-based foodie, but not only that, she has so many more elements to her. And that's why we are here today having this discussion mainly about speaking your secrets. So, Tamasha, welcome, welcome, welcome to Healing
Thank
is
you.
War. What do you have to say up front and maybe about the topic?
First of all, thank you for inviting me to be on. And the topic became really important to me. It was always important to me, but I got to the point after these files came out that I felt like it was a part of my soul mission to encourage people to start speaking up, because so many people are going through things and they're not talking about it with anybody. And I learned after going through therapy how, wow, this is really helping. Just talking about it has really helped. So yeah, I took it on as my mission.
You know, something you just mentioned because I've seen it in dealing with myself and clients. Some people say that talk therapy is dead or talking about what happens. Why do we need to talk about it? It already occurred. I don't want to belabor that point. What did you discover in talking about these matters that really helped and you know can help others?
So for me, it's like people feel like, oh, that's the past. Why do we have to dredge up the past? Let it go and this and that. But to the person who is the victim in whatever way, whether it be rape, incest, physical abuse, whatever it was, it's not, it's imprinted on us. You know what I mean? And if we aren't given the tools to work through it, because you're never going to forget it, you're not going to harbor it every day, but you're never going to forget it. And so for me, I learned that I have to talk about this. It's weighing on me. I have to tell this to somebody. And I feel like that is the what makes the difference in how we learn how to live with it. We're never going to forget it, but if we talk, I feel like me talking about it more has helped me to learn how to live with it. The emotions of when I think about it, they're not the same as they once were when I kept it to myself. The crying and why did that have to happen to me and this type of thing. The emotional side of it, it's not the same anymore. It's a lot easier to deal with when I think about it.
Hmm. Now, what does that feel like in your body? I'm curious, like the ease of it. Now that you've seen what the difference is of addressing, speaking about some of the matters, some of the abuse in the past, what's the difference in your body?
I feel like my nervous system is more at peace with it. You know what I mean? There's like when you're holding on to it and you're not talking about it or dealing with it, it's like a cloak or an umbrella. Like there's this feeling or energy of sadness that's just on you. And when you talk about it, for me, when I talk about it, there's a feeling of liberation. It's like I can breathe. I finally got that off my chest. So, yeah, that's what it feels like for me.
So, this breath, is it like a deep relief type breath, or is it because in our spaces we hear about all kinds of breath work. People might
Yeah,
do fire breathing, they're doing box breathing, yoga, all of these things. What
right.
is it from your experience? What does that like relief, that liberation and the breath feel like?
So You know how you just as just an example of like, say you're running late for work and you're just like tense. Oh my God, I gotta make it, I gotta make it, I gotta make it. And then when you get there, you're like, whoo, I made it. You know what I mean? It's like that. It's literally like this release. I don't know if it's like endorphins, dopamine. I don't know what the proper term is, but that's what it feels like. Like I made it. I did it. Like there's a celebration to be had almost.
Yeah, it's like I get that analogy because you're like, and sometimes I've been there rushing to work or rushing to something, and I make it on
Mhm.
time when I thought I wasn't gonna be on time, and that's even, to me, that's even more of a relief. It's like I made it. This is great.
Yeah.
Because we hear so much talk these days about, I see it all the time, and I know you do, the nervous system regulation. That seems to be what a lot of people are talking about in the health and wellness space. What do you think or feel the connection is between our nervous system and holding on to these secrets? Is that a lot what's going on? Why people are stressed, why they're anxious, why they can't find peace?
Yeah, just based on what I know about the adrenal glands, there's hormones that shoot out and fire out. The adrenal glands are responsible for a lot of those hormones when it comes to our emotions, and it's closely connected to our nervous system. Um, I think that when it's out of balance, our adrenals aren't firing off the right proper amount of cortisol and, the dopamine and this and that. And so I think that that plays a major, they go hand in hand. The nervous system, the gut health, adrenal glands, it's almost one and the same. They're right there closely related to each other. Because if our gut health is not right, 9 times out of 10, our nervous system is not right. And then that's what messes with your adrenal glands, which is where all of your hormones lie.
Have you had experience with that, especially because you've definitely been on your path of plant-based eating and you've
Mhm.
helped many other people? What have you noticed with yourself and clients when it comes to this adrenal connection with the gut and all of these things and how they're intertwined?
So, what I have learned or just noticed within myself, even recently, because I kind of started saying that I'm like a diva when it comes to how I eat because it's hard for me to go out to eat. It's hard for me to go to functions because I'm really picky because certain food they're very highly inflammatory. And at the end of the day, if you're not eating the right foods, your gut is inflamed, that affects your brain. And I've noticed that in myself, when I eat certain foods that I'm not used to eating, it's almost like there's this agitation that's happening in my head. You know what I mean? And I don't really know how to explain it, but I have noticed a difference when I eat something that I don't normally eat. And that's really recently as well, like when I really started paying attention. And I'm like, you know what? I ate that dish and I don't know, something today, like the next day, I'm feeling agitated. I noticed the agitation, it comes on easier, and that's that gut brain connection. And it's the inflammation. Ultimately, it's the inflammation in some of the foods that we're eating. And it causes our brains to be inflamed. And yeah, that's something that I've noticed recently in myself.
How long ago did you notice this?
Probably about a month ago.
Wow, so this is a
Yeah.
new. And then how long have you been there in Bali?
About a month. And when I first got here, it was hard for me to find the foods. It was like trial and error because this is a place where rice is born, and I don't normally eat rice. If I eat a grain, it's quinoa or wild rice.
Mm-hmm.
And I had been eating white rice, and I noticed I had a meal that was a it was a veggie fried rice. but I just felt agitated the next day. And I'm like, oh my God, that's what this is. It didn't make sense to me otherwise. Also, my stomach didn't feel like it normally does. You know, it took longer for it to process and all of that and digest and all of that. And just all my whole system, it was off. And I realized it was that rice you ate because I hadn't eaten rice, white rice. It had been a long time. It's something that I had been staying away from. But it got to the point where, like, okay, you have to eat. This is what's here. So, that's what it was.
That's amazing. And when you're telling this story, it reminds me of, do you know Dr. B Sirius? Do you know about
Oh,
him?
yeah. I love
Yeah,
Dr.
so
B.
he just released his book called What's Eating You? And it's all about parasites, but not only food parasites like you're discussing with the rice. It could be energy, it could be people, it could be these secrets we're talking about today. And the way you described that reminded me of his work. He's like, because we got to pay attention. Because you said the rice, it was something you could literally feel the agitation in your brain. It probably was a
Mhm.
parasite. I don't know.
It probably was because it was in my gut and my body just took a long time to digest it. I felt heavy, and for most people, rice is a pretty healthy, it's not like a bunch of bread or even major carbs and pasta. But for me, my body it was rejecting it. And I felt it mentally.
Yeah, that's the thing. So many people I find, but they are becoming more aware. And of course, people listening
Mhm.
to this, I already know y'all are aware. But sometimes, just like with you, recently in the past month, you say you have a greater awareness about this aspect. What do you
Mhm.
think prevents people from being aware of what's going on, like how their past may be affecting what they can eat, how they feel, how they think? No wonder I can't stay in a relationship. Whatever the symptom is, what is preventing them from making that connection sometime and being aware?
I think the medical system, I think that the lack of education, you know, um, I'm a firm believer that if we stay sick, they stay in business. So they're not going, when you go to the doctor, they're not going to talk to you about diet. They're not going to say, well, what are you eating? And have you thought about cutting this out or cutting that out? That's just not what the medical system, it's not what they do. I think that's the disconnect. And then oftentimes people trust their doctors. They trust what their doctors say. I am a healer, I'm a health coach. I speak to people about health and wellness all the time. That is my lane. And if I don't have that plaque on the wall, people are not trying to hear what I have to say. It's like, well, who are you? My doctor says this, and how do you know? And unfortunately, the science is not always right because, I mean, who are the scientists? Who's conducting these studies? Who's paying for these studies to be conducted? You know what I mean? So I think it's all have to do with that disconnect and just lack of awareness, lack of education. And unfortunately, people are lazy. When people run into a sickness, they would rather just give it to the doctor and do what the doctor says instead of actually getting on their own case, opening the books or Google in this case, and going down the rabbit hole and trying to figure out what is actually wrong with them.
Yeah, that's definitely something because I've had talks with family members years ago, and then I discovered Elmira is not even worth it. Because one thing, in, it's just at a point, we are here to be guides and not to try to force, because certain people, they may not listen. They may
Mm-hmm.
never listen, but they want to listen to the doctor. They'll
Hmm.
listen to the doctor. I had an uncle, I was trying to help him with his leg before he got that leg amputated by giving him a massage. He's laughed and scoffed and was like, haha, how's the massage going to help me with my circulation? I said, well,
And that's exactly what massages are good for. Wow. Yeah, it's this it's a conditioning that has happened. And then especially when you think about like our parents and our grandparents, our elders, our aunts and uncles, they're like, "Oh, you're just Tamasha. What do you know?" You know what I mean? My doctor has the degrees and they've conducted the studies and this is what the science says. And I'm like, well, who conducted the science? Who conducted that case study? Because oftentimes a lot of these scientists, they're paid by the pharmaceutical companies to do these studies. You know, it's like how much are you getting paid? So I think unfortunately our health has a lot to do with the money that's being made.
because it's a ton of money for sure. It's actually was one of my entryways into this work in 2006. I think I mentioned this to you. I read Kevin
Mm-hmm.
Trudeau's book, Natural Cures
Yeah.
They Don't Want You to Know About. I said,
Mhm.
well, OMG, no wonder. And I had already been exposed because my parents, my dad's like a Rastafarian. He was making pistachio pies and stuff in the 80s,
Mhm.
and so we would eat spinach and corn cakes for dinner and just all kinds of stuff. So we were very aware back then
Mhm.
as I was a child. But even then, I woke up to many of the things that the health industry was doing because that's what it is. It's an industry.
It's a business. It's a big major corporation. And they need us to be sick for them to survive.
How do we get unsick? Because a lot of the unsickness is changing the food, dealing with our
Mhm.
secrets, talking about these things. How do we get unsick? Because somebody is saying, maybe I just want to go along to get along.
Yeah, those are the people, I hate to say it, but I feel sad for those people. They don't feel empowered. I think those people that feel like that, I'm just going to do what the doctors say. Honestly, I feel like some of it is laziness. People don't want to, they don't feel like going and educating themselves. It's like that's too much work. It requires a lot and it requires change. That is the big thing. You have to change. You have to change. If you want to get well and you want to get better, you have to change up here first. You have to decide this ain't it. There's got to be something better. And then you got to do your research. You have to go down the rabbit hole and do your reading. You have to, unfortunately, you're going to have to read some of these case studies. You're going to have to look at other people's stories. You're going to have to study your body. And I always say, doctors, you're a number to them. They don't look at you like you'll go in for one issue. You may go in for rheumatoid arthritis, but the reason why you have rheumatoid arthritis may be different than the reason why I have it. But they don't look at it like that. They look at you as rheumatoid arthritis. Okay, well, what do we know about that? Well, let's just give her this, and this. Well, I'm different. And then it depends on where you're from in the globe. And that was always Dr. Sebi's message. You
Mm.
know, when he spoke about African people, you know, and so like if a white person were to challenge him, he would tell them, well, I'm not talking to you because our lineage, you know, our DNA, what our ancestors lived, what they ate, that all makes a difference in how things affect us. And so sometimes when we're trying to eat things that we weren't even, our blood type, we're not even supposed to be eating, yeah, it's going to affect you differently.
Yeah, and that's the you're talking about Dr. Sebi. We got Dr. Laila Africa. He wrote the book
Mhm.
African Holistic Health. When I made that discovery many years ago, it blew my mind because everything we're taught in the United States, mainly other Western countries too, is
Hmm.
on the basis of a Caucasian. It's on the basis of a white person. So no wonder we
Hmm.
sick. We're
Yeah.
not even being taught to be us.
Hmm. Yeah, we taught to eat food that wasn't even grown in the climate that our ancestors were raised in, or, so yeah.
It's wild to me because and that's where a lot of the I feel like a lot of the trauma comes into place too with what we've had to deal with. It starts with being disconnected from who we truly are. So
Mhm.
when we're disconnected just on the basics, the food, the shelter, how we live, where does that it's like a trickle down effect where now we got to keep these secrets or we had to deal with this condition due to the fact, I mean, religion, mind you, is another, I mean, that's a whole ball game.
That is a whole nother show. It is. But that is one of the things that has us afraid. A lot of us go to the doctor and we're afraid to ask questions. We're afraid to challenge the doctor. We're afraid to say, okay, doc, I hear what you're saying, but what about this herb? Or what about this healing technique? Or what about this fast or this diet? And, I remember going to the doctor because I was dealing with something and this was a challenge. I was challenging. I'm like, okay, well, since I'm going to the doctor, I'm about to ask these questions. Every time I asked the doctor a question about food that I ate, they didn't have any answers. I would say, well, should I eat certain foods and what foods will help me? And I had a doctor tell me, I don't know enough about that. I don't know enough about herbs for your condition. I don't know enough about what kind of foods that you're
Hmm.
supposed to eat. He literally was like, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, but we got to remember what they're learning is in this parameters of what the elites, the Rockefellers and the Carnegies, like it's if it's not in that book that they created, then they don't know about it and they're not seeking it. I'm not saying everybody, there are doctors out there that are like, okay, no, this ain't it. I'm in this to help people get well, and what I'm doing is not helping people get well, and they end up changing their whole approach. But unfortunately, a lot of them are like robots.
That's the unfortunate realization. I mean, I've had a similar realization just about the human population and people can dispute it, but the more I look into this stuff and the more I do my own healing, I do realize a lot of us here on this earth are robots, but it's shifting. I believe, like me, I have so much hope. I have a lot of faith that more people will come around and stand up for themselves, like you're saying. Ask your doctor, ask whoever, because this goes beyond just the doctor because our we have total body wellness. But if we're not
Mm-hmm.
empowered, we don't want to be sovereign. That's where it lies. That's how they're able to control us
Yep.
because we don't
And
want to be.
people feel like they don't have any power when they step into these doctors' offices because they don't have that same level of education. I mean, for me, I know my body. I know when I'm not feeling right. I know when something is off. If you're paying attention, a lot of people aren't paying attention to their bodies, but for me, it's like you deal with 100 bodies in a week. I deal with my body, and I remember saying that to one of my doctors. Him and I ended up getting into it because I was like, no, this is not, you keep telling me you want to give me some pills, and I'm telling you, no, why is this happening? Don't cover it up. I need you to tell me why this is happening. And he got so mad at me. He told me that he was going to refer me to a whole different doctor. He should. I was like, okay. Whoever you refer me to, I'm gonna ask them the same questions. Don't just throw me some pills. Why is this happening? So I can fix the root of the cause. Yeah. So people don't feel empowered. There's a fear because I don't know. That lab coat, I don't know. That white lab coat, I don't know what it is. And I think in our community, if the doctor is not black, I think that has a lot to do with it too. You know, it's like bucking the system or challenging authority, but who said you couldn't do that?
Right, because as you said, this is my body. I live in this body every day, every week, every hour. How do I not know when I feel something wrong with my heart or something's going on? This just happened yesterday. A colleague of mine, he just posted on Facebook yesterday. He was feeling some kind of twinge in his abdomen for about a week, but he was like, kind of, I feel it, but it's not nothing. He ended up having to have surgery. I don't know. He didn't mention what it was. I don't know if his appendix, it was something serious, but just that quick. And he knew. This is the thing I'm always telling people, and I even have to catch myself on this sometimes. Pay attention. Our body speaks to us. It may be a silent whisper, but we know when something is off.
Yeah. Yeah, I ended up, so I was having issues with my A1C, which has to do with diabetes. And I already know what brought it on. There was a period of time where I was just eating too many like cookies, stuff that
Mm,
I don't normally eat, but I just got into a mode and I was like eating cookies, eating cookies. And my A1C got off balance and it was up by 1 point and it caused me to have dizzy spells and I was going through it and I kept going to the doctor and I'm like, what is going on, what is going on? And they told me your A1, they ran all the tests, they were like, your A1C is up by 1 point. And so then I'm like, well, what do I do about this? And the lady was like, don't eat carbs, don't eat, basically she was like, don't eat carbs. It wasn't anything, there wasn't anything like major that she told me to change, but that wasn't helping because I wasn't really eating carbs like that anyway. I had stopped with the cookies. I was like, okay, enough. So I
mm-hmm,
had stopped, but the damage had already happened and they couldn't really, they were talking about giving me all of these different pills and stuff like that. And I was like, no, I don't want any of the prescriptions. And that's the one that I started asking about different herbal remedies and what can I do? And she just didn't know. So I went home and I did my research, and I'm a student of herbal medicine as well. So I had all the books and I got my books out, and girl, bitter melon tea is one of the things that I started incorporating every day. Bitter melon and licorice root. I started incorporating those every single day, like a medicine for months, twice a day. I'm making my teas. I'm consistent. I'm diligent. The last time I went to the doctor, which was probably about 6 months later, I
mm-hmm.
said, first of all, the dizzy spell stopped. Everything, all that stopped. But I kept going with it. Went to the doctor, my A1C is normal.
Mm.
Bitter melon. For those of you that want to do the research and you're dealing with this A1C situation or diabetes or whatever, do your research on that. That was what it was. I started drinking that every day and licorice root.
Yeah, so bitter melon and licorice root.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah, all of
And
these
licorice
things.
benefit to people if they're dealing with high blood pressure because that is one that will raise your blood pressure. So, but I always tell people just do your research. It's out there. You just have to want to feel better.
Yeah, and when it comes to research, are people also not willing to research maybe what's causing their emotional stuff? Because they've tried to block out what happened to them. Oh, this situation happened when I was 7, or my daddy did this to me, this person abused me, I was sexually assaulted, whatever. Is there an unwillingness to go there, to research even that aspect of ourselves?
I think so, because you're gonna have to revisit the incident. You're gonna have to, but it's like an imprint on you. I was violated when I was younger, and up until recently, probably like a year or two ago, every time I thought about it, I would cry.
Hmm.
I would cry, and there would just be this major sadness, like, why did he do that? But it's not like that anymore. But I decided to face it. I decided to start talking about it. I decided to talk to my mom about it, because people are gonna treat you. My aunt, her response when I told her, it wasn't nice. And I've been thinking about telling her, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. You got multiple daughters, and that's how you respond. She was my favorite aunt when I was younger, growing up until a teenager into my 20s. She was my favorite aunt. And then I just kind of started noticing that our belief system was different, and we just kind of disconnected. But I my therapist told me, like, do you have anybody in your family that you would feel comfortable talking about this? And I'm like, you know what? I think I could talk to this about this to my aunt. And
Mm-hmm.
I went to her about it, and she was like, her response was like, well, if you say this thing happened, and it was like that. It wasn't like, oh my God, I'm so sorry that happened to you. How come you didn't say, it for her, it was like, well, how come you didn't say anything before now? Because I could have confronted the person. That was what it was for her. And I'm like, I was scared. What do you mean? That's why most people don't say anything, because they're afraid that people are going to respond like, oh, especially if it's a family member, you know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
somebody that's trusted around. They don't want to hear it. So when you hear these things like with what happened with Bill Cosby or with Diddy or all of these people who have done these heinous things, the first thing people can't believe, no way, can't be. But yeah, these are members of somebody's family doing this, and they just don't want to face it. They don't want to believe it. So that leaves me as the victim feeling like shit. I hope I don't, can I say
Oh
that?
no, you good.
That leaves me feeling like shit because I'm like, damn, it took me all these years to finally speak to you about it. And that's your response? It wasn't like, oh wow, I wish I had known. It wasn't that. It was like, if this thing happened that you say, that was the energy. And then when I spoke to my mom about it, her attitude was, how? I was always with you guys, and it can't be, and this and that. You know what I mean? So people are in disbelief that their loved ones or their neighbor, whoever, these people that they trusted could do this. But the truth is, yeah, this is happening in families.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, I've had similar things like that I've discussed. It wasn't anything like a traumatic. Well, it was traumatic. I mean, discussions I've had with my mom, and it's like I was blamed for it, and I'm the child, and I'm like, I didn't. How was I supposed to do this? Like, oh, you should have said. I'm like, I'm 13. I don't know any better.
Right, right, right. I'm a child, and then this person, like, people get threatened. You better not say nothing, or I'm going to do this to you, or I'm going to do that to your mom or your dad, and you better leave this between us. And, yeah, there's threats being made and stuff like that. So, and you don't forget about it. You just learn how to live with it. But it affects you, it affects you somehow. Depression. I learned from my best friend that I used to cry a lot when I was a teenager, and it appeared on the outside for no reason. But it wasn't until I got older and I just kind of started, like, healing and doing the shadow work and going back and writing and journaling and thinking about how my life has unfolded. It wasn't until then that I was like, oh my God, I did used to cry a lot. And now I know why,
Mm.
because I was dealing with that. I was dealing with that alone in silence, So Yeah, that's why I'm just on a mission to get people to start talking about it because it's time.
It is time. And just to kind of go back to what the unfortunate responses you've had from family members, I find some of that within them is grief. You know how when grief happens, it could be a death, I could lose my job, any type of loss. The initial thing is shock. But you would expect a family member to not be shocked. But okay, here's what came to my heart as you were saying that. Are people generally, and of course we're speaking generally or maybe specifics, do they have more belief in a system or protecting a family member than protecting the victim of this heinous activity? Because that's what it's shaping up to me. Like, do y'all want to uphold this system we talked about here in this conversation? Doctors, industries, family, the church, whatever. Or do we want to protect the victim?
Unfortunately, it's about the system to me, and I remember having a conversation with my son, and I said, for Black people, we were taught, don't talk about nothing that's going on in this house. There was that. And then even during, shoot, we can go far back as slavery times, like you're not supposed to complain. You're not supposed to say, you're just not supposed to. The whole terminology of snitches get stitches, I'm pretty sure that started in the Black community. you know, I'm a firm believer of that because we're not supposed to talk about what Uncle so and so did, or because it's just it's a bad thing that he did, and we don't want people to know. It's like keeping up appearances and stuff like that, I think. Yeah. And then the system, the bigger system that we're dealing with now, I mean, how many people have been arrested since these files came out? People are in
Nobody.
denial. Nobody.
I sat
Nobody.
there and watched the Clintons. That whole deposition was a hot, fragrant mess. I said, and we know the truth. This is the crazy thing, Tamasha. It's like innately, we know what the truth is, whether it's in a microcosmic way where it was a family member or somebody we know who accosted us, or in the greater scheme of things where we got Epstein, Bill Cosby, Diddy, whoever, the names can go on. We already know the truth. But they gonna sit here and lie in our face?
But then you think about the people like when R. Kelly got in trouble. Think about all them people that was outside of that courtroom, like they're just lying and they just want money. And I'm like, all of them? What are they getting together and having a meeting about what they're gonna say? Come on.
Right.
I think that stops people from speaking too. Nobody's gonna believe me. Because at the end of the day, when these things transpire with people, there is no physical proof. Most of the time, it's just my memory and me deciding to share it with you. There's no way for me to prove it. So, yeah.
They know. Okay, I gotta ask you this question because it just came up when you were mentioning R. Kelly. Because a lot of this, and I'm just gonna speak to the black community here too, it's a lot of men who are doing these acts. Do we, because I'm going to speak to women, are we collectively as women protecting the men and saying, oh, he could have never done that? Uncle so and so is the deacon at the church, or he would have never did that because he's whatever role, whatever title. Are we
We
just
are
thinking they would never do no wrong?
we are definitely protecting the men. We are protecting the men. Yes. Husbands, think about how many families within the home, the wife knowing that her husband is doing this to the daughters. Most of the time, no, you can't. No, that's going to be between me and you. And then some women are like, stop lying. I have a family member that went through that. When she finally spoke up, it was said to her by her mom, stop lying. And she messed up mentally to this day.
Oh my
Mentally to this day.
goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're protecting these men. We
Why
are.
is why is this a cultural thing? Because I talked to one of my friends. She's from Zimbabwe, but she lives in the UK now, and she was telling me how in a lot of African countries that is the thing. If you, as the wife, were to speak out against your husband or come to your mom and say, he did this or I don't like, you would be told, what did you do wrong? You could be that the daughter of the mom and you being told you did something wrong against the husband when he done over there beating you. What's up with
Yep.
this?
I don't know. Mentally, there's something there's a disconnect. I don't know. I don't know if I always feel like maybe these types of behaviors started in slavery, but I don't know. I do know there's a lot of healing and unpacking of luggage that needs to be done in order for us to get through this. I've spoken to so many people in the last probably 2 weeks. People have just been kind of reaching out to me. I spoke to a young lady who got violated by her next door neighbor and his wife. And she hasn't dealt with it. She hasn't done anything about it. She hasn't dealt with it. But I believe she's a hot mess as a result. You know, there's a fear. I think the big fear is that people won't, if I say something, they're not going to believe me. Or if I say something, they're going to think it's my fault.
That's unfortunate we've gotten that way in our society where somebody telling you they've been victimized, I have to be fearful.
Yep. Think about how many people, even with these files that have come out, there are people still in denial. Still, people have said, oh, don't forget AI exists and this video is not real and that picture is not real. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, they have done a number on humanity.
Because it's again to circle back to something you stated with the brain gut connection, it's mental. I see this with my students that I teach and just people I encounter in general. If we've been programmed to believe something for 10 years, 20 years, 40 years, 50 years, 60 years, that is a hard program to break. Like, think about it. We're on these computers and phones right now. It's been programmed to do said thing for me and you to communicate all these miles. Same with us. If they program me to believe that they are the power source, my politician, my whoever, my musician is empowered over me. Who the heck? They made us think. And Tamasha, I had to let go of a lot of this stuff even last year because and me and you both were in the like media industry, so we know where that can lead, media, music, all intertwined. I was even up until last year believing that these people were better than me just because they had a record deal or they're in the public eye or they're on TV. It's the programming.
It is. It is. Yeah. I remember sharing a story. I may have shared this story with you about seeing Will Smith leave the club with two drag queens,
Mm,
you know? And people are like, no, no way, no way, no way. You're making that up. That can't be true. And I'm like, why? Because he's a celebrity? Why? He's human. He has desires. He's got his little quirks, whatever they are. He got his things that he likes, whatever he's into. So why is this so hard to believe? Why is it that celebrities have to be the ones that are the angels that can do no wrong? I don't get it. I don't get it.
It's a perception, and that's why I got out. Let me tell you this little tidbit. I was in a music group. Now, this was back in what, '07 to about '010, 2007 to 2010. And I had a group mate. And I started to wake up to what was really going on. I was like, wait a minute. I'm the one doing all the traveling, going from Richmond to Alexandria. I'm doing this. I feel like I'm being used. Plus, we were eventually, of course, and this is no shade, but I gotta speak the truth. Eventually, my bandmate, he came out, so he's gay. I didn't know that at first because I had gone to college with him. But then after that, we were doing performances at a gay club. We performed at a gay church. And I'm like, this is weird. Elmira's the only female amongst all these gay men. What is really going on? Like, and then when I was at the club doing the performance, I was shocked by the people I saw in there. I said, wait a minute, you. And they probably was looking at me like, why are you in here? And I'm like, I'm just singing. I was just here to sing. But that opened my eyes, and I'm so glad and thankful because I had my little flash back in my previous life. I call it a previous life because we go through various identities where I was, I wanted to, because I tried out for American Idol, I tried out for The Voice. So I was among these people, and all just getting that glimpse alone was enough to say, this is not the path.
Yeah, it's a crooked industry, and a lot of these stories, like when you heard that long ass interview Cat Williams did, the stuff he was saying, he wasn't lying. I don't know why people are in such a hurry to get into that entertainment industry. It's crooked as hell. It's damn near as bad as politics. Like, it's bad. Especially if you don't know, if people want that fame so bad, and they'll just be like, okay, okay, okay. And then before you know it, you done signed your name in blood, and now you have to produce. So yeah, I don't get it.
To me, it part of that stems from us not being connected to who we truly are. So if we're going back to the traumatic events we may have experienced at a younger age, I am more apt to sign that agreement, to sign over my life, to say, hey, it's better than what I dealt with. And it could be the most wretched thing in the world. But because I'm so broken, why would I not go? Because I bet you if we sat down, and we know this because some of them have revealed this to us, they have the deepest, darkest secrets themselves.
Oh yeah, I mean, I could tell, which I'm gonna start doing. That's the purpose of my new podcast coming. I'm gonna start speaking. I've got some celebrity stories to tell.
Hmm.
I was an ex radio personality. You already know that, but I just wanted to
Hmm.
let you know. So yeah, I've been in some rooms and seen some things. And so for me, like, no, I don't. If it's especially more than like two, three, four people talking about it, then it probably happened. It probably happened. So yeah, I don't know where the fear comes in. I don't know. It's something that they I don't know even know who they is. They've implemented this fear in us. Maybe that we will not be successful. Maybe that we will get put on blast. I don't know. Maybe that we won't be believed. Maybe everybody will call you a liar. I don't know, but it's time that it's not only time to start speaking about things, but it's really time to start getting serious about your health. I don't know if you've noticed, I'm sure you have, people that have gone through a healing process on a healing journey, have done certain types of fast. They talk about the mental clarity and how they don't feel sad and the anxiety has diminished and all of the depression is gone. So that's why I always encourage people not just to do the right thing by the food you eat, but also do something for your mental as well. That's why everybody out here all fucked up and killing each other and fighting and people's brains have parasites in there. It's like it's getting eaten away at, and people don't even recognize it. But once they embark on that healing journey and they actually do the work, then that's when they notice the change. And people are afraid to do things different because that means they're gonna have to change. But that's the important part of healing. You have to be ready to change whatever it is that you have been doing.
Yeah, you gotta change, and plus, it could be a lonely road because that was one of the discoveries I made. I wasn't, I mean, I had to do it. I moved to a whole nother city, no family. Well, I got friends after I moved there, but a lot of times, and this is for everybody listening, it may be lonely. Because if you want to get to the other side, you want to truly have health, mental clarity, lose the weight, whatever it is, you may be alone. And you got to be okay with, I'd rather be alone and healed than in this group of people and feeling distraught.
It is a lonely road, because there are times that I'm like, I'm not coming to the party because there's not going to be any food there that I can eat. I'm not coming to the party because I don't want to mix my energy with the people that are going to be there, and you will have to start saying no. You're going to have to just choose yourself. Don't worry about what the friend group is going to say because you just you don't want to hang out anymore. It's like somebody's trying to get through alcoholism. You're going to have to change your environment. You're going to have to change the places you go and the friends you hang out with, the functions you go to. You're going to have to if you don't want to fall back into that alcoholism. It's the same thing when it comes to healing your gut, healing your mind. You're going to have to do a lot of things different, and it is lonely, but it's worth it. God got you. You're never alone if you trust in I call them my angel gang. If angel gang, if you trust in the higher source, your creator, you're not alone. It's a part of the process and it doesn't last forever.
Yeah, that's the beauty. It doesn't last forever, and plus eventually you will meet people you are in alignment with. I can attest to that. And most of the people I've met, they live somewhere else. They live in another country, they live in another state. And to me, that's the beauty of doing this. And one of the things I've noticed, because with this healing, and that's why this is called Healing is War, when you're willing to battle, when you're willing to fight, when you're willing to say, I have the courage to stand up to this, I want to change, you have peace. You have this flow. And I, one of the things I find a challenge with, and especially the past several years, I don't have many people to talk to about the great things going on because they don't get it. They're like, but my trauma, I'm at work, I'm suffering. I'm like, I ain't suffering, I'm doing well. Like, I'm like,
Yeah, but you did the work, and I think that that's the part that it trips people up. It's really, really hard to decide I'm not going to Burger King anymore. It's so easy to just go to Burger King drive-through and get some nuggets and fries and call it a day instead of going home and actually cooking something healthy. You know, it's really difficult. It's a mental thing, and you just have that's where the war part comes in. You're literally battling yourself. You know, you're battling these cravings. You're battling the old you. The new you wants to emerge, and the old you is fighting you. So that's where the war part comes in. You are literally fighting your old self. You're gonna become new, but that we're supposed to change. If you're not changing, you're not growing. You're staying the same. So
mhm.
yeah.
I'm I'm gonna ask you this last question because you made me think about some extreme things that I did that most people would say is extreme as you're talking about Burger King. It was, I had a friend in Nashville, and one day I was hanging out with their family because they're the Hemp Hills. I'm just going to say their name. And her brother challenged us. She was like, he said, I bet you can't go a whole year without fast food. I said, what? Yes, I can. Did that whole year without fast food. And that's what started. I had already been doing other things, but, and it was a challenge because during that time I was driving from Tennessee to Virginia, 10.5 hour trips, and I used to stop on the way to get something to eat. But then I began bringing my carrots or whatever to eat. And then another extreme thing I did, I'm just thinking about what you said with the war. I took a whole year off social media, period, in 2018. Nothing. And
Wow.
that
That
changed my life.
wow. Did
What
you
would
find
you,
did
hmm?
you find that difficult?
It was at first, but then it was so warming. It was so freeing because I didn't have to worry about, and people told me when I started, "Oh, how are you going to market your business?" Because at the time I had my massage therapy business. How are you going to do this? How are you going? The same way people do other stuff, word of mouth, everything. People know where I am.
Yeah.
We become so dependent on the system of what we were taught to do that we think there's no other way. So, my question based on that is, what has been the most extreme thing you've done for your health?
21-day water fast.
Oh,
That's the most extreme thing I've ever done. And I've done that twice.
what were the
So,
results?
um, I felt better. I slept better. I lost weight, but that was never really the goal. I never do anything anymore to lose weight. I just know that once I start doing that healthy thing, the weight is just gonna fall off. But yeah, I got rid of parasites. I don't crave sugar anymore. I don't crave sweets. Yeah, 21-day water fast. And in the process, I was drinking the herbs to kill parasites. So it was like a parasite cleanse, but it wasn't just the water, it was the herbal teas. And yeah, at the end of it, I lost weight, lost like 26 pounds in 21 days.
Oh,
And
wow.
everything was clear. My mind was clear. I slept well and no cravings. No cravings. So yeah.
That's amazing. The longest I've done a water fast has been 8 days. So I've actually been thinking about doing one of this length, either 3 weeks like you. I even want to go 40 days. I want to just to me it's an up level to my energy because doing those things, and like you, it's not so much, oh, I want to lose weight. It's I know I'm destined to go higher, like see something to help people in a greater way. And for me to do that, I have to have deeper and greater clarity.
You got to heal you first.
hmm that's the key. Okay, this is what we do at the end. I share some soul work, that things that you mentioned, because this is people's homework. I'm going to mention four things, and if you have something to add, feel free at the end of the list. So the first thing we want the audience to do as your soul work, educate yourself. That's what Tamasha said. You have to change in order to get well. Number two, study your body behind the diagnosis, because you may have been diagnosed with diabetes or fibromyalgia, whatever the condition is. Study your individual body. Number three, revisit the traumatic incident. Heal the imprint. You have to go back and revisit it. Number four, start speaking up even though systemically we've been silenced. Do you have anything, any soul work for people to do? Anything to add?
Oh, scream. If you got to scream into a pillow to release the aggravation, the sadness, if you got to cry, cry. And don't be afraid of the darkness. Don't be afraid of that shadow. Don't be afraid of it. Embrace it. It's a part of you.
And then, yes, all of I've done all of that. I still do. I was doing it this week. I was screaming because I do grief yoga, and in there he's got you doing because that's where the release is, in our body, it's in our cells, and if we don't do those things, how are we letting it go?
Go to the park. And, go outside, go away. If you're feeling like you're going to be embarrassed, go outside, go to the park, go to the beach. I don't know, into a pillow. But yeah, scream if you have to.
Full agreement with that. Where can everybody find you, Tamasha, to because you got your podcast coming up, you got some other things as well.
Him, and YouTube at a plant-based foodie. And also on Instagram, my coaching page is Wellness with Tamasha.
Okay, well, that's a plant-based foodie, you said, on YouTube and Instagram, and then Wellness with Tamasha as well. You all
Yeah,
make sure you follow Tamasha, you ask her questions. She is here to assist you on many levels. So
definitely.
do not be afraid to speak up.
I'm built for this. I can handle it. If you need to talk to me, hit me up. I got you.
I'm with you. Okay, remember everyone, your soul is calling you to greatness. Be a soldier. You are ready for war. That ends our episode for today. We will see you next time. Bye.